Welcome back for another episode of Hoeology Podcast. I have missed you guys. I can't believe it's been a month of no episodes. First of all, I have been just extremely busy. We all know how life can get, but no worries. I am back and I have a ton of new episodes waiting to record. So stay tuned for that. But we're going to focus on today's episode. We're going to start, of course, with our tweet of the week, which says, delete the negative stigma around STDs. Y'all too damn old to be sticking with the automatic, they're dirty stereotype. Get tested, be safe, be open with your partner. The only time there is shame is if you refuse to get tested while thought and bopping. Listen, I could not agree more with our tweet of the week. Like, the stigmas around getting tested it's just wild. Like, in this time we had that talk about it. Like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. One of the main reasons that I started this podcast was because I wanted to create a safe space for people that are sexually active, which is majority of us, and open like the floor to a healthy sexual exploration, healthy conversations around sex. And it's like one of the things I think within the sexual community, period, that holds us back is the way that we look at and talk about STIs. I think that the most important thing that needs to be had as far as the conversations and the shift of our focus around the stigmas and STIs is like looking at them as what they are. By definition, an STI is a sexually transmitted infection caused by bacteria, viruses, or parasites. And I want you guys to really understand that, like, this infection is common. It is just transmitted sexually. STIs are common. They are infections caused by bacteria, viruses, parasites. The same way that you get an infection in your knee when you fall and scrape the ground because there are bacteria, viruses, parasites on the ground and they've entered your skin is the same thing that's happening with a sexually transmitted infection, except it's literally going from one person to another instead of from the ground to your knee. So we need to treat them as such, an infection, a reaction, etc., etc. I'm not saying to make it as like, oh, it's like an everyday thing, but I am saying like shit happens, okay? And if we're being honest, a huge reason why people don't get tested is because of the stigmas associated with having an STI. So they'd rather not know their status, take that risk, and not even understand the risks that come with not treating an STI or not getting it recognized early on and then infecting others. And it's just like a domino, a spiral effect. And we don't want that. We want healthy conversations around STIs, healthy treatments for STIs, healthy bodies to keep having healthy sex. That's all we want. And even though I am a hoeologist and I am an advocate for hoe shit, I am more so an advocate for safe hoeing. And I really want y'all to just understand that. So we're going to start off with some facts around STIs because there is a lot of misinformation that gets thrown out there. People's think pieces. You remember that Dr. Love who pretended to be a doctor? Like, is a lot of them people on Twitter, on Instagram that just post fake headlines, post fake memes. And I wanted to just serve you guys with some facts so that we can then start this conversation around healthy STI talk. Fact number one is that STIs can become resistant to treatment and they form what's called a superbug. This is very common with gonorrhea. It's also very common with the flu virus. So think to yourself, why do I have to get a flu shot every single year for the same flu? Because it's not the same flu. Last year's flu virus mutates. It becomes resistant to that same exact medication or whatever treatment that they gave you last year. And so now you're having to treat the mutated version. And the more down the line you go, the more resistant it becomes. So the same thing is happening to the gonorrhea virus, bacteria, parasite inside your body. It's mutating and it's become resistant to medication, which is why it's better to get tested early on and frequently and treat it once and for all, and then maybe prevent those factors that are leading to you contracting gonorrhea. It can happen with other STIs as well, but it's very common among gonorrhea and chlamydia because the treatment for them is so readily available that the viruses mutate and then stop working, like the treatment stops working. So, fact number 2, which I think a lot of us learned before they took sex ed classes out of our education systems, is that men typically show little to no symptoms of having an STI. This is a huge thing and a huge reason why men don't know that they need to get treated as much, is because nothing really changes for them. With women, our symptoms are pretty instant and we know when something's wrong. Like, ladies, you know the difference between when you have BV versus when you have like a yeast infection. We know the difference. Our discharge is different, the itchiness or the sensitivity is different. You just know. But with men, they might have a discharge, but they might think of it as like a pre-cum or just like, extra dribble, or dang, like, why does it hurt when I pee? Maybe I'm just tired. Like, they may not know that those symptoms are equating to having an STI. So it's really important to know what those symptoms are as well, so you know what to look out for. On the Why Is It Spicy episode, I talked about how women go to the doctor more than men because we have an extra doctor that we have to see. Most men that I know don't have a urologist, which is someone that could help them with their reproductive health. So they usually rely on their primary doctor, and we'll get to why that may not be the best person to reach out to regarding an STI or a suspected STI in a minute. Fact number 3. 60% of the US population has a version of HSV, aka the herpes simplex virus. When I tell y'all, the herpes simplex virus tree is so big, like, I had no idea that there were so many different versions, but that all come from that same family tree, like shingles, cold sores, chickenpox, like all of those fall within the same herpes simplex virus tree. And I think herpes is probably one of the most stigmatized STIs because it's associated with like sexual promiscuity or just a lack of care or whatever. It's just like you hear herpes and your mind automatically goes to the word dirty, or you think of like genital warts or just the most gross thing you could possibly think of. And that's not always the case for almost like all of the cases. For a lot of people, it lies dormant, so you literally never know you have it. You can have it not show up on STI tests at all. A lot of doctors, there are 2 different tests I believe that you can use to get tested for herpes, and most doctors will choose the one where it won't show up because it's A, not treatable, and B, an expensive test to use. Which is ironic because for it to be as common as it is, a lot of doctors also will just look at it and won't swab it to verify. They won't check blood tests to verify. They'll just do a visual test and be like, this is what it is. So it's scary, but it is very common if 60% of the US population has a version of it. Number 4 is actually crazy because I did not know this. There are more than 20 types of STIs, and you can have more than one at the same time. This is why it's so important to be proactive about your health instead of reactive. You don't want to find out that, or actually, you do want to find out sooner rather than later, which is the theme of today's episode. But you don't want to find out that you have 3 at once and then you're on 3 different treatment plans. Like, you do not want that. So definitely be careful because there are a ton of different STIs out there. The last STI fact that I have is kind of a sensitive one, but it's really to just stress the importance of getting tested. Um, Untreated STIs can lead to infertility in men and women, birth defects, and even death. Untreated chlamydia, gonorrhea can lead to infertility. Birth defects that happen to the baby in utero because whatever the mom has, the baby has. And of course, death. There is a type of HSV that can lead to your or travel to your brain and pretty much melt your brain from the inside and then causes you to die. You don't want that. And that's why I think it's so important to remove that stigma of getting tested or even having an STI, because I'd rather know that I have something and be working on getting treatment than not know and passing it on to someone else and taking away essentially that consent of them knowing something that involves their health, which it is actually illegal to do. I don't know if you guys know that, but there was a case a while ago where Charlie Sheen, who I think was diagnosed with HIV, he was knowingly passing HIV to women. And that goes for any STI. If you've ever had an STI, the health department will call you. They'll force you to expose any sexual partners that you have had, any sexual partners that your partner may have had when you guys were intimate, if you used protection, and they will have to alert them. If you don't and a person finds out, they can sue you because you literally put their health in danger. Like, it's not a joke. So that's why I say we need to remove the stigmas so that everyone is comfortable knowing their status. And speaking of not knowing your status, I wouldn't be the hoeologist without having a story for you guys about a time where I had an STI. I was a freshman in college. I was freshly in love, or so I thought, and I was being unsafe with my partner. And I was like, I can trust him. Like, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. We've been together a minute. Like, I trust him. And that was my mistake. You know, you can't trust everybody. You really can only trust yourself. And sometimes, because I'd be fighting with my own brain, but that's another story for another day. I remember being in my dorm, chilling, and I get a phone call from our student health center. And they pretty much were like, yeah, so your STI test did come back positive for chlamydia. When can you start treatment? And I just remember my heart left my body in that moment. I was shaking, I was crying, and I did feel dirty. I felt disgusting. I'm like, how could I do this to myself? Like, I am stupid. Like, how did I even catch this? I have been like loyal to him. I don't cheat. I've never cheated. This is a huge reason, like, this relationship set a stone for me as to why I would never cheat, aside from the fact that I think it's immoral because you could just dump the person. But whatever. So pretty much I had a conversation with him, and he wasn't shocked that I told him that I had chlamydia. He was more so like, oh, okay, so when do you pick up your medicine? And I was more so like, nigga, excuse me? Like, did you know? Did you know that you had chlamydia and you just knew that they were going to give me treatment? Like, I need to know. I need to know. So he pretty much was like, I mean, I didn't not know. And I was just like, this is disgusting. Like, where did you get it? And then it came to light eventually that he did cheat. And the ironic thing was that I was now being stigmatized because I was loyal, I was faithful, I was with someone that I trusted, and their cheating brought me an STI. So even though I didn't go out and I wasn't out seeking it and I wasn't out, all these things that people assume about people that have STIs, I was in a loyal, committed relationship and I got cheated on and then had an STI. The semantics of it generally don't matter, but it's the fact that once you have an STI, people label you as one thing. Oh, well, she's a hoe. Oh, well, he is out fucking everybody. Oh, that's like almost like that's what you get. And it's not fair because you don't know the circumstances that led up to that moment. And all you need to know really is that someone was in an unfortunate situation that led to them receiving an infection, and that most of the time there's treatment for said infection. Honestly, it's none of your business. So if you've ever been a person that's judged someone for having an STI or rolled your eyes or kind of like tilted your head away, like, check yourself. Check yourself, because you don't know what someone has gone through. There are people that have been born with HIV. That wasn't their choice. People that are cheated on, people that catch it from literally sharing chapstick, from anything. So you never know. So just let's check our judgment, because that is one of the first ways that we can seriously end the stigmas behind getting STIs. So in this episode, up until this point, you're probably like, damn, Destiny, all right. Like, I'm going to go get tested. Hold your horses, because there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of true information that's out there regarding the type of STI testing. And let me tell you, they are not created equal. Sadly, you do need a different STI test for each different STI. For a blood test, even though they're more expensive, they honestly are the best options for the more resistant types or more non treatable types of STIs. Blood tests can show you if you have HSV, if you have HIV, syphilis, and hepatitis B. Unfortunately, there is no cure for herpes simplex virus. There are antivirals that you can take if you do have outbreaks, but it's generally a rash or like a calmer virus. HIV, there is PrEP, I believe, that you can take so that you have low to no transmission. Syphilis, the treatment for that is penicillin. And I didn't know that hepatitis B was considered an STI, so you guys can look into the treatment for that. For a urine test, which are more common, this is what your doctor will probably give you if you ask for an STI test. They'll be like, oh yeah, just pee in a cup. No, sis, I want the blood and urine. I want the full panel is what you need to say. Urine and swab tests show chlamydia, gonorrhea, and trichomania. For chlamydia, though, there's a little asterisk here because if you have chlamydia that is received orally or anally, that's obviously not going to show up on a urine test, which is why you need a blood test. Gonorrhea shows up in a urine test. And then trichomania. For my ladies that are listening, trichomania has identical symptoms of BV, and it is the same treatment that they give you for BV. So be careful about that. Don't just assume, oh, it's BV, I'll pop a boric acid and call it a day. Double check that and get tested. The last one on our list is our friend HPV. Actually, not our fucking friend because it leads to cervical cancer, that stupid bitch. But anyway, guys, HPV is when we're getting our pap smear and you see that extra long, thick Q-tip and they swab the bottom of your cervix and then they go and test it and they'll say like, oh, it's either normal or abnormal. If it's abnormal, they'll probably redo the swab and they're actually looking for cancer cells. So if you have that, that's a good indication that you have HPV. Most of us have been getting those thick, painful Gardasil shots since we were teenagers to prevent HPV. But as I mentioned earlier, men are the carriers for the HPV virus. So whether we're getting treated or not, there is no official treatment for HPV. It's just men have it. They either give it to you or they don't, and that's kind of it. The pesky thing too about HPV is it looks like herpes simplex virus, I believe type 1, which is the warts. So you can have genital warts and you'll think that, oh shit, I have herpes, and really it's HPV. Again, there is no cure for these viruses, but there is like treatment that you can do, which is antivirals. The positive thing though, and hopeful thing about these viruses is with PrEP being a huge thing in preventing like transmission of HIV, which is a virus, is that hopefully in the future there will be a similar like onset treatment for or prevention for HSV and HPV. So there's hope, guys. Now, let's say you're like, Destiny, I've already gone to the doctor. I asked to get tested and they asked me, was I exposed? And I said no. And then they refused to test me. They are not allowed to do that. If that's happened to you, you need to switch doctors immediately. I have had that experience where a doctor was like, well, have you been exposed? And I'm like, no, I haven't, but I want to know my status. And they're like, well, if you haven't been exposed, then there's no really need to worry. Bitch, what? First of all, what about the symptoms? Like, I'm having vaginal discharge. I'm having like itching, or I have low to no sex drive, or whatever. I want to know my status. In the event that your doctor asks you after you've asked to be tested, have you been exposed? You can lie to them. If you want that doctor to test you right then and there, lie and say yes. If they say, well, what have you been exposed to? I don't know. A cocktail. Who the fuck knows? It's okay to lie. But they are not allowed to turn you away, especially when you're like, bitch, I have insurance. Like, I want to get tested. Like, it really does frustrate me because I work in the healthcare field. So I'm very passionate about my health, and I'm very passionate about having providers that are also passionate about my health and care about me and understand that it's better to be proactive in these situations than reactive. Like, I'd rather know now that I don't have chlamydia, and then if I catch chlamydia in 6 months, I can narrow down which partner gave it to me. Like, does that make sense, guys? So, as the patient, especially the patient that's putting money in their pockets along with your insurance company, you need to stand your ground. I want a full panel. I want to be tested for chlamydia, for HSV, for HIV, for syphilis, for gonorrhea, for trichomania, etc., hepatitis B. I want to be tested for it all so that I'm not, in 10 years, like, sorry, your HIV developed into AIDS. We should have caught it sooner. But I was turned away when I asked. So that's a big part. So stand up for yourself and demand that you get tested, a full panel, every single time. So let's say you don't have the best insurance or you don't have insurance at all, like if you're a sex worker and that's your full-time job. You can go to Planned Parenthood. They offer like low to no cost STI testing, and usually they just ask for like a donation in return. They also give you free condoms, like free, just a lot of different types of tests. So if you want, you can always go to Planned Parenthood. They have a lot of like educational resources as well, pamphlets, like just people that you can talk to. And that's why it's so important to donate to them and support any kind of like political candidates that back them, because with them being funded, it's more than just like abortion and pregnancy services. Like it's community sexual health, like period. So check out Planned Parenthood. If you're like, I still want to be pretty discreet, there is a website called stdcheck.com. This is not sponsored. I just found them and they were like the lowest cost that I could find. Their at-home test ranges from $49 to $140. So you can send it into their lab and get your results sent right back to your home, like super confidential, super easy. A lot of people also don't know, but if you do end up contracting an STI, when you get a call from your local health department, they will ask you, like, do you need help setting up treatment? Say yes and let them know, like, I really cannot afford X, Y, and Z. I don't have a doctor or I don't have insurance. And they will also help you find low to no cost STI treatment and then retesting to make sure that it's out of your system. So your health department or your local like free health clinics, they're all there for you. So there really should be no excuse on why you haven't gotten tested. I would love to just sit here and be like, guys, if you want to prevent an STI, just wear a condom. Condoms don't prevent you from catching HSV or herpes. Like, they don't. You can still get chlamydia orally. So even if you're like, well, I'm abstinent, but I'm sucking dick, you can still catch an STI. Well, I'm not sucking dick or having sex, I'm just kissing. You can still catch an STI. Like, condoms don't prevent STIs. People are having raw sex. Like, we just need to be honest about it, period. Like, just be honest about it. And then from there, we need to remove the stigmas associated with having an STI. If more people were confident in getting tested, I think that a lot more of these transmission cases and a lot more of these positive cases would be way, way down. So I've given you guys some great resources in this episode. I really do advocate for healthy, safe sex. Like, seriously, I'm all for hoeing, all for living it up, having as much sex as you want, but please do it safely. Know your status. And I just want to say too, like, if you ever want to talk to someone about it or if you're scared, please reach out to me. Like, I will help you do whatever I can to help you know your status. We're not alone. Like, me catching chlamydia in college, I was like, I am such a slut. Like, I'm a whore. I fucking deserve this. Like, and in reality, I didn't deserve it. However, I'm not the first person and I won't be the last person in the world to have chlamydia. That's the biggest thing to remember. There's so many support groups out there for people that have maybe like an untreatable STI. Join those. If you found out that you have HPV, look for a men with HPV support group on Facebook, and they can help you with home remedies or treatments that work for them, or even some like case studies that are being done around the world to get some of these untreatable STIs a cure. So I have hope that this episode will inspire you guys to go and get tested, know your status, shit, post about it when you go get tested. Maybe don't post that you're disease free or whatever, because that's kind of adding to the stigma, but definitely post like, hey, I know my status. Do you know yours? Because you guys could also be inspiring someone to get tested and know their status. So with that being said, happy, safe hoeing.